So, are monkeys the ultimate climate warriors?
Well, this is a really important question, Jake, because forests are hugely important in the fight against climate change. They absorb lots of the carbon that we emit, about a third of it, in fact. But of course, forests aren't just the trees that we see, they're also the animals that live in that forest and interact with those trees. So, for example, there are pollinators, there are browsers that eat the leaves of the trees, and of course, there are seed dispersers that are important in helping those trees regenerate. Now, many of our tropical forests around the world are losing their animals. It's a process called defaunation, and it happens largely because of hunting. The problem is that we don't know what impact the loss of those animals will have on the functioning of those forests.
That's right, Charlie. And so, our piece of research published earlier this week in the journal Nature Communications takes together all of the data sets that we could gather from around the world in these forests and starts to analyse them together to see what are these general trends. And we find that when we lose things like primates and large birds, we actually see a big impact on the regeneration capacity of the forest. So what's that really going to mean for us?
Well, it's a real problem actually, because it turns out that the tree species that are dispersed by these animals tends to be bigger and store more carbon than other trees. So what we'll see is that when these animals disappear from forests, the biggest, most carbon-rich trees won't be able to reproduce, and they'll be replaced by smaller trees. So even if we protect the forests and we stop them being cut and burned, they're still likely to store a lot less carbon in the future.
And that's because the seeds with the most carbon tend to need animals like this acorn requires a squirrel to disperse it. And that's the same in all forests. You need animals to move these big seeds around and to move that big carbon around that system.
And of course, when we think about how we're going to protect ourselves from the worst of climate change, the conservation of forests is one of the most important tools we have. And up till now, we thought that we just have to stop the forest being cut. But what our research shows is that we also have to stop the animals being lost too.
So if we didn't need another reason to love wildlife, now we know we need them to sustain life on Earth.
Absolutely.
And I literally have ants in my pants.
That's a great ending.